my name is Robin Bucklew. I am so excited that you are here checking out the virtual bookkeeping mini course. I want to make sure that all these videos are packed with a ton of value and that we get all of your questions answered. So in this first lesson, I'm actually going to answer a lot of the most common questions that I get asked about people who are interested in starting a bookkeeping business but maybe don't have any experience, don't know what to expect, and so we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. So in this lesson, I'm going to go through why bookkeeping is the best business for moms who want more freedom without sacrificing their income. We'll talk about what qualifications you need to start a business and what qualifications you actually don't need to have. We'll talk about what a bookkeeper actually does and how much can you really make even if you're starting completely from scratch, you don't have an accounting degree, you don't have years of experience. We'll talk through all of that. And then finally, I want to tell you guys a little bit about my story and how I actually scaled my own virtual bookkeeping business to 6 figures and then multi-6 figures. And I was only working about 10 hours per week. So if that sounds good, if that's got you interested, I'm really, really excited that you're here. And I'm going to go a little bit quick. If you need to, there is an option to slow the video down. Also, you'll have a workbook that you can take notes and follow along. All right, so why is bookkeeping the absolute best business for moms? And of course, this is going to be my opinion on it, so I just want to give you all the facts so you guys can make that decision for yourself. But here are a few reasons why I prefer bookkeeping over any other business I could have started. The first reason why is because unlike a lot of the other options that are easy to get started with, bookkeeping means that you don't have to sell stuff to your friends and family. So if you've done an MLM like Herbalife, Scentsy, LuLaRoe, LipSense, Mary Kay, you name it, that's awesome, right? If you have those skills, that's really valuable. But the hard part about doing a business like that is that you don't own it. So for example, LuLaRoe is a perfect example of this where people absolutely loved the product. It was easy to sell. They were making money. And then all of a sudden they had quality control issues with the product. And that tanked people's business if they were a LuLaRoe rep, right? Because they had no control over that. So one of the reasons that I love bookkeeping as opposed to an MLM is that you're in control of the product that you're selling and who you're selling it to and how much you're charging and a lot of things that you don't have control with when you're building someone else's business. I also like that we don't have to pick up strangers. So I think Uber and DoorDash, those are great. Those have been great opportunities, especially for people coming out of the pandemic. It gave people a lot of opportunity, but I think that there is definitely a better opportunity. And again, building a business that's your own. The skills for actual bookkeeping are in high demand. So even if you decided to start a different business, if you didn't end up being a bookkeeper, you're not losing anything to learn bookkeeping skills. Every business needs bookkeeping skills. So here are a few of the students who did join my program and decided they wanted to get more experience while they were learning and while they're finishing the course. And so we've had several students who've gotten jobs as a QuickBooks Live bookkeeper, which is the software that we learn. They hire bookkeepers now. And so we've had several students who got experience doing that while building their own business, and then were able to quit that job and start their own business once they got enough clients. All right, every business needs bookkeeping. So in the US alone, we have 28 million small businesses, and we have over 500,000 new businesses start each month. And the one thing that they have in common, they will all need a bookkeeper because they all need good bookkeeping in order to get their taxes done. And now more than ever, these businesses need good human bookkeepers. I put that in there on purpose because no, robots cannot do it better than we can. The reason why is humans are unpredictable and humans are the ones starting businesses. So a lot of times we're going to work with clients who didn't go to school for accounting, who didn't study bookkeeping, who don't really know what they're doing. And they typically are going to need to hire someone like us who've learned bookkeeping, who've learned QuickBooks Online to clean up whatever messes they've made in their bookkeeping and then keep them clean and on and accurate going forward. So all you have to do is fulfill a need that is already there, because there are already so many businesses who need a bookkeeper. And the cool thing about our clients as a bookkeeper is that they are long-term and stable. So one of the things I've noticed is that once you get hired, clients do not like to let you go. 56% of accounting firm clients have been with their accountant for 8 or more years, and over a third have been with them a decade or longer. And I can speak from experience that once I have a client, the only time I think clients ever left or stopped being a client was typically if they sold their business or they shut down their business. And I had just one client during COVID who his entire business was built on the restaurant industry, who had to pause services until they were able to open again. But other than that, people really, really don't like to leave their bookkeeper. Another great thing about a bookkeeping business is that the hours are flexible. So this is Erin, and she actually started out as my assistant, helping me with my bookkeeping business. And when I hired Erin, she was 8 months pregnant. And so we knew that she needed a really flexible arrangement and something that could grow as she got her time back. And so she became my assistant. And the great thing is we can do this at any time of day. So Erin would be checking emails and responding to clients when she was up feeding her baby in the middle of the night. So that was a pretty cool experience. It's also one of the most profitable businesses that you can start. So usually it's in a top 3 of the most profitable businesses on the Forbes list that they publish. And the reason why is because we can charge high rates, but we have low costs to start up and low overhead, which means that we make really, really good margins on our services. Speaking of those margins, this is from Forbes, where they list that the average margin of an accounting firm is 21%, and that's really high for a business. Well, it's nothing compared to what I was able to do in my business. My average margin, all the years of my bookkeeping business, is 65%. We also have really low startup costs. So in order to get started, I needed to have a laptop, internet, and a phone, which I already had and already paid for all those things. I ordered business cards, I set up a website, and then I registered my business with the Secretary of State. Now, in hindsight, the website was not really necessary at all. I'm going to show you guys in this video how I found clients and it had no website required. So that was something I started because I thought I needed to, and I think it cost about $14 per month. I used a Wix website. I think I spent $50 on business cards, and then registering with my Secretary of State in Idaho is only $100, or maybe it's $125. So overall, I started for less than $200. And then the best part is now I get to write off my laptop, my internet, my phone, things that I was already using because they are reasonable and necessary business expenses. So things that I didn't have to pay for. I didn't have to pay for office rent. I didn't have to pay for employees or office supplies or marketing. I didn't pay for my client subscriptions to QuickBooks. They pay for that themselves. And like I mentioned, I paid, about $15 per month for my website. Internet was $75 a month, and my phone was $108 per month. So those were my costs for running my business. And like I mentioned, I was already paying for my phone and internet. So what about AI? This is one of the biggest myths that I hear out there where people say, well, this all sounds great, but aren't you about to be replaced? Is there a future in bookkeeping? And here's what I have to say about that. QuickBooks is great, but it can't do our job without us. They need bookkeepers to actually look at the transactions that are happening and categorize them correctly. The AI is nowhere close to being able to do it with any accuracy. And part of the reason why is because we have small business owners who are somewhat unpredictable and they might put personal expenses on their business card. They might buy things for their business on their personal card. They do all this sort of mixing that AI just can't handle. So you need a real person to be able to talk to the client, figure out what all of these transactions are, and then categorize them. So I'm not worried about the future of bookkeeping. If anything, AI is great for helping to make our processes better and faster, but they haven't been able to replace that human element. All right, so what do you actually need to start a bookkeeping business? What qualifications do you need to have? So I want to play a fun little game really quick called Never Have I Ever. All right, so if you've got your workbook, I want you guys to keep track. Have you ever balanced a checkbook? How many of you guys have balanced a checkbook? Right? I mean, this might be a skill set that's going away, but if you've ever balanced a checkbook or maintained your checking account, give yourself a point. Have you ever managed your family's budget? If you've done that, go ahead and mark that off, give yourself a point. Have you ever saved money with coupons? Right? Some of you guys are probably into couponing. How many of you guys have saved money with coupons? If so, give yourself a point. Have you ever shopped around for a deal, looked for the best options? If so, give yourself a point. This one's a particular favorite of mine. Have you ever dug into the details on your credit card statement like a PI? So something pops up and you do all the research to figure out what in the world is that charge for and is it legit? How many of you guys have done that? If the answer is yes, give yourself a point. Have you ever chased your kids down for a homework assignment? And you might be thinking, what does this have to do with bookkeeping? Well, we chase our clients down for bank statements every single month. So if you've ever chased your kids down for a homework assignment that you know they have or that you know they finished, then you know what you need to do already. Have you found a way to find money in a pinch? I know we got a lot of moms on this right now. How many of you guys have had to come up with the money and you figured it out? If so, give yourself a point. Have you ever applied for a loan? If you've done that, give yourself a point. Have you paid bills? There's another point. Have you ever saved your receipts or tracked your receipts? Give yourself a point. And have you ever organized a closet? And you might be thinking, what the heck does that have to do with bookkeeping? That's basically what we do, right? A closet is physical, so you see the pants, you put the pants where the pants go. You see the shirts, you put the shirts where the shirts go. You know how to organize it. You can see where things have been in the past and put them there again. That's what we do with expenses for our clients. We just organize their closet. We put things in the right places, and over time it gets easier and easier because we already know where everything goes. So if you guys did that and you were able to check off a bunch of those options, you're like, yes, I've done that, yes, I've done that, then you can do this because these are the same things that we do as a bookkeeper. We just do them for businesses instead of for our family. Now, notice that I didn't mention when talking about the qualifications, I didn't mention a college degree. I didn't mention that you need years of experience. And I certainly didn't mention that you need mathematical genius because I certainly don't have that. You don't need any of those things to be a bookkeeper. What you do need is training. What you do need is to learn. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to ask people, before they were a bookkeeper, what did they do? And so here was a poll that I created, and we got a bunch of responses. And of course, no surprise, we had a lot of people who worked in an accounting role as an employee, and that's a great place to start. But our next highest category was stay-at-home parent. We had people in healthcare, people who'd owned other businesses. We had a lot of teachers and nurses, which I think makes sense because you're smart people, you've got a degree, you worked really hard, and you're burnt out because you're underpaid in a very stressful position. So that makes total sense to me. We've had administrative assistants, vet techs, people from the financial industry. You name it, anybody can become a bookkeeper as long as you're willing to learn the skills. So, quick pop quiz. Do you need a license? And when I say that, I mean like a CPA license or bookkeeping license. The answer is no. You might need a license in your state to open a business, like in Washington, for example. We don't need it in Idaho. So you might need a license to open a business in your state, but you don't need a specific license to be a bookkeeper. Do you need a degree? No degree is required to be a bookkeeper. Do you need tons of experience? No. And here's part of why I say that. Because one, you're going to learn the skills, but two, bookkeeping has changed drastically in the last few years. So back in the day, people used to hire an in-house bookkeeper. You were doing all of this stuff manually. So you did have to have a more fundamental understanding of bookkeeping because you were posting everything in the journal, and then you had to post from the journals to the ledgers, and you had to make sure everything tied. There was a lot of room to make mistakes. Well, all of that is automated now with QuickBooks Online or whatever accounting software you want to use. So the skills that you need now are different. And so even if you had those skills, even if you've been doing it that way for 20 years, you still have to relearn, just like everybody else, how to do it using the new software and technology. All right, do you need 40 hours a week to start and run a business? Absolutely not. So when I started my business, I was working full time and I put in less than 10 hours per week. And you could do more or less to accelerate your results, of course, but that's just where I was at. I just wanted to work on nights and maybe weekends and build that business so I could quit my job. All right, do you need to be the smartest person in the room? I can't tell you how many times I've met moms and they say, I'm not sure I'm smart enough, or that person is smarter than me. And I want you to be like, just think if doctors thought that way. Like if only the best person, only the smartest person in the world could do it, you would never get in to see the doctor, right? And it's the same thing with bookkeeping and every other profession in the world. There's not room for everybody to be the smartest, and we don't need that. You need to understand how to do bookkeeping. You need to understand how to use QuickBooks Online, and that's it. Most people don't want to pay a premium for the smartest person in the world anyway, right? Like, we don't need Elon Musk as our business advisor telling us how to start a business. We just need someone who's done it before. All right, do you need a lot of money for startup costs? I hope you know the answer by now is no. And I'm going to show you guys how you can start with completely free software. And like I said, I started my business for less than $200. All right, so if you're still with me at this point, this means that you can start a bookkeeping business even if you have zero experience, even if you're on a tight budget. What you need is training, which is why we are going to go over the bookkeeping basics in the next module in this mini course. So we're going to cover the debits and credits and how to read financial statements and the different account types, things like that. We're going to go over that in this mini course. You also need to know how to use accounting software, which is why in this mini course we've got some trainings on how to get your free QuickBooks Online account and how to access free training provided by Intuit, which is the makers of QuickBooks Online. So I really, really want you to have everything you need to see if this is the right opportunity for you and to hit the ground running. All right, now how much can you make as a bookkeeper? Well, let's make sure it's worth it to you, right? And how long is it going to take you? So my personal experience, I landed my first 2 clients and ended up making about $1,400 my first month that I decided to start doing bookkeeping for clients online. And then here are my results for my first 6 months of freelancing, and I'm going to tell you what platform I used in just a minute. But when I first started, as you can see, I made almost $1,500 that first month, and then it was pretty consistent. And then in December, I was making $2,300 for that month, and I continued to scale my business while still working my 9 to 5. And I actually quit with a full book of business already set up, meaning I already replaced my income from my job before I'd even quit it. So by April of 2018, I was on track for a 6-figure year. And I had my biggest month ever in September when I was in Scotland for 15 days. So I wasn't even here. And part of the reason that worked for me is I had an administrative assistant and I had a bookkeeper to help keep things going while I was gone. Every year that I've had my business, I've done over $100,000, done multiple 6 figures, and it just kept growing. But it's not just me that was able to do that. Here are some people who also have gotten results that I helped. We got Lorena, she landed a cleanup. We've got Erin, who's actually, back in the day that she had posted this, I hit the $1,000 per month mark last week. She's actually in our 10K club. Amanda, was able to cover her grocery bill and her rent, but actually she retired her husband and he came home to work with her. And then we have Heather. She was at $4,000 per month, only working 15 hours per week. And if I recall, she's also in our 10K club now as well. So we have, Delilah, who signed her very first client only 2 weeks into the course. And then we have Rhonda, who landed 4 clients in under 30 days. And so obviously we've got a lot of students who are doing this, a lot of moms just like you who are able to figure this out following our training. Becky, she was able to, she signed a 2020 cleanup and it more than paid for her course that she joined. just amazing, our students. And then Tracy, one of my favorite students ever, she was in my very first beta course. She signed 62 clients that very first year. So I want you guys to imagine, and again, I want you to have this mindset as you're going forward. Imagine what your life would be like if you had that extra $1,000 per month, or $5K per month, or $10K per month, whatever that goal might be for you, because that's what I'm trying to show you, is that this is possible for you. All right, so what about without experience? You might be thinking, yeah, sure, okay. Does this work for people without experience? Yes, so this is Erin. And I think I mentioned her just a little bit ago, but she had 0 experience. Erin was a teacher, and she's actually in Idaho just like me. So she joined my program, after going through my free trainings, and she is in our 10K club now. We have Wendy, who didn't have any bookkeeping experience either. She had 3 clients at the time of posting this. And we have so many more students who had 0 experience, who just followed what we teach, learn the skills, and there's just such a huge market for this. There's just so many people out there who are valuing the relationships and the personal connections that we bring to the table, now that it's not just about who has the most years of experience doing this, right? Or who's local to me. We're able to work with people all across the country, and so it's been a great opportunity for us, and it's been a great opportunity for small business owners too. All right, so how much money can you make? So that's great. There's a market out there. There's people who want this. But how much are they willing to pay? So when you're just getting started, let's look at some rates. Here's my personal opinion, but when you are a beginner with no experience, but maybe you've gone through a course or a training, I would say your hourly rates should start around $25 to $35 per hour. And those are also the typical rates if you work for another bookkeeper. So they're taking on all that risk. And in the case of your clients, if they're hiring you directly, there's a little more risk there, right? That you have a learning curve. So $25 to $35 an hour. For me, I still thought that was great. I live in Idaho, where the cost of living is maybe a little lower than some other places. But I started freelancing on the side, so making more than I was making in my day job was worth it. Once you have a little bit of experience and you've got some training under your belt, your rates can jump, I would say, between the $35 to $55 an hour. My recommendation is every new client you bring on, that you increase that hourly rate $5 an hour. And then once you're experienced and you've got multiple clients and you've got testimonials behind you, your hourly rates can easily be in the $60 to $75 an hour range. However, I do all my clients on fixed billing, and so they pay a flat monthly fee, and my margins are much, much, much higher than this, with some clients being 150 plus per hour for basic bookkeeping. So this is just to prove, like I said, I started my business, and I'm going to talk about Upwork a little bit later in this to show you guys how I found my clients, but I was charging $55 per hour, and as you can see there, I made over $100,000 just on this platform alone. And we've got several other bookkeepers. I purposely picked these people because when I looked at their profile, I didn't see any. So the first person has a bachelor's degree in business management, but I believe the second person didn't have any degrees or anything like that, and they're still charging $50 an hour. And then we've got people with more experience who are charging $75 an hour, $100 per hour, and all of these people have in common that they've made over $100K just on this platform. So your rate, of course, is not going to start at the top, but if you're starting from 0, your rates are going to be closer to 50 or 22 to 25 an hour than 55 an hour, and that's totally fine because you're going to raise those rates with every new client. So how did I scale to 6 figures working just 10 hours per week? So you've kind of seen some hints here. I used an online platform. I was freelancing while working full time. But I want to just dig a little deeper into that, because one of the best things about starting a bookkeeping business is there are already people online looking to hire you. And because they're already online, they're also more comfortable working with a virtual bookkeeper. So I wasn't constrained to my local community. I was able to work with clients all across the country and in Canada. So the way I did that is I set up a profile on a platform called Upwork. And here's what that looks like. There's my profile. And like I said, I made $1,400 my first 2 months on the platform. And then I just made more and more every month after that. And my recommendation is to write a really good profile, have a good profile picture, do what you got to do to get that first client, even if it's like a one-time job, a lower rate, whatever it is, because once you get a good review on Upwork, they start putting your profile in front of all these other people, and it just snowballed from there. So landed a ton of clients by doing that. The other platform that I like to use is something called Fiverr. So you set up a profile on Fiverr. It's very similar to Upwork, except for on Fiverr, you say, here's what I'm offering, and people can just buy it. So I recommend setting up the 3 gigs, set up something that you can do a fixed price for. So for me, that was typically doing a discovery call or doing a QuickBooks online diagnostic, and people can just buy those things and hire you right away, and they put you in front of a ton of clients as well. If you did want to do something local, BNI is another great place to find clients. For me, I never ever paid to join BNI. So you can visit each BNI group twice within 6 months without being a paid member. And so I would just go to these, in my area, if you do a quick Google search of BNI in your area, my area, there's like 13 or 14 different ones, all within 30 minutes of me. So I had more than enough places that I could go and network in person if I wanted to. And I got a ton of clients without ever joining. And like I said, one of my secrets for making this work well, because yes, you get a visit twice in 6 months at each location, mind you, not just one location. I volunteered to sub for people. So when you join BNI, you're required to go every week. And if you can't come, you're supposed to find someone to fill your spot. So I'd volunteer to fill people's spots and they couldn't make it. That meant that they got my contact information, that they were in touch with me, and it doesn't count towards your 2-visit limit. So I basically got to tap all of those groups for free. Then in order to scale, like I said, I was working full time. So I worked on nights and weekends to serve my clients. And I have a lot of people ask, well, how do you do that? Do you tell your clients? Heck yeah, I did. I did tell people that I was working full time while I grew my business, and I would tell them if they needed to talk to me during the day, that we'd have to plan it out so I could schedule it during a lunch break. Otherwise, we talked after work and on the weekends. And I didn't have a single person who that was a deal breaker for them. Everyone worked around it. And then finally, the other thing that really made this work is that I made sure my offer was something simple and scalable. So one of the biggest mistakes I see new bookkeepers make is you think you have to offer everything to everybody. I didn't offer sales tax. I didn't do payroll. I didn't do inventory. I did cash basis bookkeeping for small business owners who just needed to get their tax return done. And that scaled me to 6 figures. So if you're thinking like, oh, I've got to do all these things or I'm not going to make any money, that's not true. Keep it simple. Do something that's really, really easy for you. And in my case, that's doing the same thing over and over and over again. I don't want to have to relearn how to do everything with every client. So if they were using different software, then they weren't the client for me. If they were in some niche that I didn't know anything about, then they weren't the client for me. So that's my recommendation for how you make this scalable, is start with something that you can repeat instead of trying to serve everybody and offer everything. So here's what we covered today. I tried to keep it short and sweet for you. Why bookkeeping is the best business for moms who want more freedom. We talked about, and I didn't even mention the best part, recurring revenue. Like the reason that this all works so well is that when your clients sign up, they sign up for a fixed rate every single month. You get better and better and faster, but their rate stays the same or goes up over time. And so you start making more and more off each client. So that's one of the reasons why bookkeeping is absolutely the best option out there. You're also building your own thing. We talked about what qualifications you need and what you don't, and a lot of skills that you probably already have that would make you a perfect bookkeeper. We talked about what a bookkeeper does, mainly that we're using this online software. It allows us to just categorize all the transactions for our clients, much like organizing a closet or, saving your receipts. You've already done these skills. We talked about how much you could earn even if you're brand new and you don't have years of experience. And then I gave you just a quick little story about how I scaled my business to 6 figures working just 10 hours per week. Coming up in the rest of this mini course, we're going to talk about the math behind financial freedom. In other words, how many clients do you really need if you want to be able to afford your dream life? We're going to talk about the true cost of owning a bookkeeping business. And like I mentioned, I started for less than $200. We'll go deeper into your role as a bookkeeper so you can see exactly what you will and won't do for clients. We'll even talk about how to choose a profitable niche so you can stand out from the competition, even people who are more experienced than you or have degrees, and still charge high prices. We actually are going to dig into the basics of bookkeeping as well. So learning those debits and credits, learning your accounts, understanding what financial statements are. We're going to dig into that. And those are actual trainings, no fluff. We are going to walk you through click by click how to get your free QuickBooks account. And then I'm also going to show you how to access free training for QuickBooks Online so you can start learning now. And of course, once we're done with all of that, we'll talk about what your next steps are if you decide that this is a business that you want to pursue. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's lesson. The future lessons will be a little bit shorter, make it a little easier for those of you who have busy lives and a lot going on, but I can't wait to see you guys in the next lesson. I hope that this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you are as excited as I am to see where this can go.